connection between the two of them. So those kinds of things, watching shows together, that kind of stuff. Discipline. Gord talked about two types of discipline, I think, in his sermon this morning.
Yeah, I talked about formative discipline when you were trying to teach your child good habits. Teach the child to make their own bed.
To do their laundry. To talk to other people, to be hospitable, to pray, to study God's Word, etc. All of these chores and responsibilities and all those other things. That's the formative, practical teaching. And then there is the reformative teaching. Correction.
That's where you get the tow truck out.
It's deleting unacceptable behavior. That's a tow truck. So we're going to spend a little bit of time, because I think y'all probably get the value of actually doing formative training with your kids. But reformative training is that there's two kinds of reformative discipline. One we're going to call private. And our example of it is in Luke 24:34, where Peter has sinned and Jesus appeared to him. And it seems he appeared to him privately, so he didn't do it in front of everybody else. And again, on the road to Emmaus, was that one from?
Yeah, the couple that were on the road to Emmaus went back to Jerusalem and said that Jesus had appeared to Simon. So Jesus evidently told that couple that he had appeared to Simon, but the embarrassment of Simon Peter over what he had done in denying his Lord was tragic, and so Jesus restored him between the two of them alone.
And so the example of that might be, if a child does something like talking back to you and no one else is around, or has a problem at school, like he's cheated and you've got a call from the teacher, that's when discipline is about talking about it, correcting the behavior, and offering a second chance. I don't think to go and share that with the whole family or make fun of them in front of all their siblings, right? Or point it out in front of all their siblings. There is a time which is appropriate for private discipline. But there is also a time for public discipline. And this is done really in a way that allows all members of the family to learn from the discipline. And this would be when Jesus said to Simon Peter, and when he said, "Get away from me, you'll never wash my feet," he said, "Get behind me, Satan." So that was written in front of all the other disciples. It was a public rebuke, and it was for the information of more than just the person was being rebuked. And sometimes that happens, right? If a child is disrespectful in front of others in the family, or when they're stealing in front of other children in the family, and especially younger siblings, or fighting with their siblings, then that's a really good time for public discipline, because we want more than just the child to learn this. We want the whole family to be a part of it. The warning that I have is basically about anger, okay? Take time before administering any kind of discipline. Don't discipline when you're angry. If you're really angry, especially you gentlemen, if you're angry, you'll scare your kids. You really scare them. And you want to make sure that you also don't discipline in a way that is inappropriate, because your anger is the thing that's speaking, not your logic, right? Remember I talked about frontal lobe? If you get angry and you can say on a scale of 1 to 10 that you are angry at about a 7 or an 8, your frontal cortex is shut down. You are just like the 8-year-old that doesn't have any ability to do good decision making. You have no connection between the anger you feel that's being generated by the neurons in the back of your brain and the CEO in the front. You'll make decisions and do things that you will regret later. Calm down. Take time. Count to 10. Go for a walk. Get your anger back down to a reasonable level, and then do discipline. So this is the best time to say, in your room, I'll be back in a half an hour. Think about it, right? Because the thing is, yeah, you want your kid to think about it, but what you really need is time for you to think about it. Because you do not want to do anything when your productive part of your brain that does all that higher brain function is not accessible to you. And that is a major problem. You heard of crimes of passion. Crimes of passion are things that people do when their frontal cortex is shut down. They're so angry that they act out of the primal thoughts that are generated in the back of our brain, and don't actually do the work of that colder cognition, right, the calm down.
What time is this book?
Is it? Okay, well, we're right at the end. So,
that's good.
Okay. Participant. We're all participants in family. We're going to talk just briefly about how to be a responsible child, how to be a responsible adult child, and how to be a responsible sibling. I'm going to start, and Gordon's done a little bit of this already, the adult child participant, caring for elderly parents. How we treat our parents is how we are teaching our children to treat us, right? So if you treat your parents with kindness, if you're helping them and stuff monetarily, physically, emotionally, then you are demonstrating to your children how they should behave towards you and towards other people. It's critical. And when you take that parent out and help them with their appointment, if you're coming home and complaining about what a pain in the neck they were, how much of your day is being taken up with this, and how absolutely tired you are because you're part of the sandwich generation, then you're telling your kids that when you get older, you're going to be a big pain too, right? And we don't want them. We want them to see us doing things that God wants us to do with joy. And looking at our parents, our elderly parents, not as a big pain in the neck, but as people who brought us into the world, who nurtured us, who have physical ailments and mental limitations that have changed their personality, and you know what, their lives aren't that great anymore. So we need to make them better by treating them with respect.
When you look at the 7 words on the cross, among the first words that Jesus said near the beginning of his time on the cross was, "Woman, behold your son, man, behold your mother." He was passing the care of Mary off from himself to this beloved disciple who had a nice home in Jerusalem where Mary could feel comfortable. So right up until the final hour of his life, he was taking care of his mother's needs. The one who said he didn't have a place to lay his head. So you can't say korban to your mother. Jesus, when he described your honoring of your parents, did it in economic terms. And we need to follow Jesus' example there. Now I'm taking extra time, and we're about 20 minutes over our time.
Are we? Okay. I just want to mention emotionally. Emotionally, I think that there's a time in your life when it flips, right? When you're no longer the child, but you're the parent of your parents, and that can be seen, I guess, as something that's negative. But I think I've kind of come to enjoy it and realize that they're not always going to be here. And if I can be there to help them emotionally and stuff now, like they helped me emotionally when I was younger, then I'm going to feel better about their loss when I don't have them, and I won't have as many regrets. And it kind of occurred to me recently that, you have your kids on one end, and they're, driving you crazy with their dating issues and their child-rearing issues. And now I've got grandchildren who actually text me to tell me what their problems are at school and stuff. So they're constant. I love this, by the way, so I'm not really complaining, but you have that happening. And then you have your parents running and saying, your dad has a doctor's appointment and he just can't get the driveway shoveled out. You think you can come and get us? And, so you kind of feel like you're torn in a million different directions. But I compared that to how about if my parents were gone and my children no longer needed me? And what would my life be like then? And I think I would miss how busy and crazy it is now. So I think at some point in your life you notice the flip and you go with it because it's good. And then the child participant is just doing, this is for you guys who are all kids and families, okay? Do chores without complaining. Set clear rules, parents, and consistent rewards with appropriate punishments. I mean, I really think it's important for us to look as young people at the chores that we need to do around the house as ways of helping our parents. Like, we want our parents to help us, right? It's really important that we are also concerned about making life easier for them. One of my daughters, before she got married and left home, would call me on her way home from school and say, hey, Mommy, I'm just going to drop into the grocery store and I'm going to pick up this. Do you need anything? So, I mean, it was really cool, like, to have this child asking me if she could help me. She knew I was really busy, right, because I just described to you all this crazy about him. So she would do all kinds of things like that that were really nice. Let your parents know where you are, okay? This is another big deal. I love that expression. Well, I'm old enough to be in university, and if I was away at university, then they wouldn't know what I was doing, so why do I need to tell them? Well, you do, because you live in their house, and they worry about you, and it's respectful, right? And I remember the same daughter. I had one daughter that was just a gem and another one who gave me a run for my money, but she called me one day from her job, and she was about 20, and she said, oh, Mom, I'm just going out for they were just going to Jack Astor's for dinner, I think. And she came home and she said afterwards that this guy was saying to her, "What are you phoning your mommy for and telling her that you have to, you're going out? I mean, you can do what you want. If you were away at university, then, you know, she would know." And she said, I just looked at him and said, "Yeah, well, I'm not away at university. I live in her house and she worries about me." And I thought, for you, girl, you must have done something right. Doing homework without arguing. Being taught responsibility and having an opportunity to participate in decision making. So, in other words, family meetings around things that impact the family, where the kids' opinions are taken into consideration and incorporated into the final solution, right? So that it's not a decree, but rather family communication. Again, I don't have enough time to go into any more about that, but you get my point, right? I'm done, Gord.
Is that it?
For me.
Well, we're supposed to be done at 2 o'clock. It's 2:26. Is there a quick question? No question? Does that mean that we explained everything with such clarity that no one could misunderstand? Or were we so confusing that you don't know where to start with the question?
Gord had this last slide, but I actually don't know what to do with it, so I don't really understand it. Oh, learning to accept difficulty. Oh, right. Oh, and actually, maybe this is it, see.
Yeah.
I don't think you have anything you want to say there, right? The end.
No, we're all set. Thank you very much for your time and letting us go over time.
Yes, we appreciate it very much.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you very much for everything. Let's show them our appreciation. It was a very practical seminar. Okay? Now we have to put in our hearts all the good advice that we received today. Let's end this wonderful day in prayer. And I would like to ask Leonardo